You're listening to the Talking 20 podcast. This podcast is for you if you're in your 20s and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? We've all been there and we want to talk about it. We're your hosts, Bridget O'Rourke and Mary Margaret Courtney, and we sit down with fellow millennials to chat about their journey and hear what they've learned along the way. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Talking 20 podcast. This is our pre-episode chat that Mary and I have decided to do post episodes, in between episodes, to kind of give you guys some insight into our podcasting strategy, what's coming up on the podcast, what used to be on the podcast. So for this episode, we literally just came into the room of where we record and we just press play. So we haven't even really chatted this morning yet. So this will be a fun one. Yes. Okay, so what were you just gonna say, Mary, before I rudely interrupted you?
It was so not important, but Monica Padman and Dax Shepard have a saying, ABV, always, or no, that's wrong. ABR, always be recording.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I always find that, after I end the interview, after I press stop recording after an interview, that's when all, the good shit comes out. Well, I mean, all the good shit comes out beforehand as well.
People are more chill. I think it's the way we stylized our interview is a really good way to get people to filter their thoughts. So a lot of people have come in with preconceived ideas of what they want to say or how they want to say it. And I think that when we get through, we've done all the talking, they've said everything they want to say. You turn off the microphone and then they're their natural selves. And everyone's all excited because, woof, the hard work is done. And then cool shit comes up.
Yeah. And then I'm always okay, wait, hold that thought. Press record again. But then we're halfway through, a really important thought. And I'm I can't put that out because it doesn't make sense. Nobody has any context.
That's so true. I never thought about that. Sorry, I'm just fixing something on this microphone.
Just fixing your mic. So I was thinking I think I want to do some sort of social media thing about all of the different rooms that Mary records in. Every time we record, you're somewhere different.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
There we go. This is better. I'm just going to do this today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, today. Very professional.
That looks so awkward.
This isn't professional at all.
Mary, for people listening to this podcast, Mary just took out her microphone, which is this gigantic microphone, and she's just kind of holding it. It doesn't look cool like you would think it would with a normal microphone. This is a microphone that's supposed to be on a stand.
It's sexual.
You're holding a big zucchini up to your face.
I'm
just
gonna
do
this,
looks like.
So it looks like I'm not holding it, or
I can definitely see your arm.
Oh. Anyway, I was thinking. Yeah, I'm always at a different place because my life is a disaster.
Yeah. I was gonna say your life is a bit hectic right now.
It's just hectic, but also, I feel like there's an echo on me. Is that just me?
I think that's just you. But I have echo cancellation on. But if there is an echo, I will cut it out in post.
Okay, I'm just worried I did something on here, but I don't want to change the thing on the microphone now.
I think you're good. Just leave it.
Okay. Anyway,
you're a hot mess. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. I wanted to showcase my Jenna doodles.
Oh.
And I awkwardly placed a sunflower arrangement near here just because I thought it would look pretty, and then it got weird.
It does look pretty.
I literally spent my prep time for this placing that versus figuring out the microphone situation.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it happens.
First things first, get the design going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was thinking we'd start this one off. We should talk about last week's episode a little bit, the one with your mom that we released, because that was a fun release to have. Oh my god. Okay, 1 second. My roommate's cat is wild. I need to let her out of this room.
Okay. Bridget will probably cut this.
Hold on. Talk.
I'm going to. I have things to say. Talk. She doesn't need to tell me to talk. Bridget, I know. Talk. Anyway. This is an inside on Bridget because we can hear her. She always has cat troubles. The cats know when she's recording and they need to be heard. That's basically what's happening here. And then she comes back in and it's as if she never left. No. I was
No.
explaining to the guests about your cats, which you'll hear when
Oh.
you go to post this episode.
Okay, great. Yes, it's a little bit of a crazy zoo in my house, but
Yeah.
it's getting better.
Feline.
Anyway, yeah. So let's talk about Brenda. Did your mom get any feedback? We'll keep it
Like a
short though,
bit.
because last one we talked a lot about Brenda, so we don't want to like be restating things that we already did. But
no. Brenda had feedback from some friends, some school friends, some academic-y people. I found I had people in my life listen to it that haven't listened to it yet, or like my brother posted about it, which was really nice of him.
I
So
didn't
just
see
showing that. Yeah, and like people that are loving the show, but it was just a different perspective for them. And like my best friend was like, I just miss her now. She's just the best. I was like, right?
Yeah, she's pretty great.
So yeah. Oh, and I didn't freaking shut this off. Sorry.
So usually before we do these interviews, we have like a checklist of, okay, are the mics set up properly? Is everything on Do Not Disturb? How does the background of the room look?
We're getting loosey-goosey.
Yeah. These ones are supposed to be raw.
They're raw. Here we are. Anyway, so yeah, no, it was really good. I think she felt like a sense of relief in the way of just like letting it be. So when you send the episode, because we always want to let them listen ahead of time in case there's something that they regret saying or might need to edit. And she was like, no, you know what? Like I tried to ignore all the little voices in my head and just let it be what it is and let people accept it for what it is. And so I'm sure like her inner dialogue was going like crazy, but on the outside she was like, I'm good. I'm happy with it. I'll just let it be what it is. And yeah, and she was just so supportive and wonderful.
I'm glad that you and I released our episodes before, we got really into the thick of things here, because now I understand on a deeper level now that like inner dialogue that's like telling you nobody cares, stop talking about yourself, you say this too much, you say that too much, and you have to just trust the other people in the room to be like, no, this is good.
Yeah, and just like
you really have to get out of your head.
Yes, and all she can do, because she has no control, she doesn't get to edit, she doesn't get to do anything. All she gets to do is say, like, I trust Mary and Bridget. They're going to put out the right narrative. And, like, I had fun doing it, which is what she said in her Facebook post was, like, it was just a fun experience to do. And, yeah, like, I think you had the hardest job of all to actually edit your own episode. Like, that's a very unique experience. But, yeah, I found that putting my episode out, I was like, okay, I can now know what people are going through. And we can lead with a bit of empathy there. And, yeah, it does. Yeah. It gives you an insight for sure.
Yeah, well, it was really good, and I feel like perhaps our target demographic has changed a little bit, or at least we've grasped more people's attention from this one. It's actually our most downloaded one. Well, no, that's a lie. It's not our most downloaded one yet, but it's the one that's being downloaded the quickest. Yeah. And I think that's just because it speaks to something that a lot of people just don't talk about right now.
Brenda's got a lot of friends in a lot of places. Maybe she's the one who has like a friend in Kenya.
In Kenya, yeah, we've been getting stats from Africa, from China, and we're like, who are
these people?
We're internationally renowned podcasters.
We are, yeah. Which is so funny because it's always like one listener, which makes me think it's like not a real person.
And so they probably dropped off.
What are the chances? Yeah, what are the chances there's like one person in Kenya who's like, that looks good. It doesn't make sense to me, but maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, it's really funny because it's like one listener, and in percentage, it's just 0%.
Yeah, it's a 0%. That's funny. Okay, so let's talk about next week, because next week's episode is so much fun. It's such a fun one. Do we want to say who it is on these? Yeah, I guess we should, right?
I mean, we did on the last one, so let's do it.
Yeah, okay, so we will. So the one coming up next week is my friend / coworker, Jordan Percival, and Mary actually knows him a completely different way.
Yeah, he's just my friend / friend.
It just so happened that we both knew him in completely different ways. But he has great banter. He's hilarious. He's one of the people who makes me laugh the most in this world. And editing that episode, I felt like I was in a room with the three of us, just like watching us. I was just in hysterics. I had to take out a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stupidity.
I actually did.
Sure, but
I actually did leave a lot of it, most of it in. I did one edit, and then I went and listened to it. I'm like, this just doesn't sound like us. Like, I have to have that banter in there. So I went back and put in like the specific banter.
Yeah. Well, there was, we definitely get carried away, and then we're not talking about anything anymore. And you're like, okay, well, why are we here? Yeah, for sure. And like a bunch of people who are really good at getting off topic. Like really good at it.
Yeah.
Especially
like
when we're
3
together.
people with I don't know if Jordan has ADD, but
let's just say he does.
Like, let's just say he does. 3 people with ADD. Also 3 people who were like, was Jordan a theater kid? I feel
I don't
like
know, but he should have been. I mean, he's a performer now, right? I was thinking that this morning. I was like, he just performed. Like, he's so witty, and like you and I behind the scenes talk all about improv and working on improv skills, and I'm like, that guy's like improv 101. Like, he's just always on the ball. And I text this to you after listening to it. It's that concept of yes and. So when you do improv, there's this whole thing about just like, you always accept an offer and then you add to it. You never, because if someone like gives you an offer, there's no script, and you say no, then they have nowhere to go. You're shutting them down, and it'll kill whatever's happening in the scene or whatever situation. So when we listen to this, like, Jordan is a yes and guy. He always comes to the table with an idea and a suggestion, and then he adds to your idea and suggestion. He just wants to keep going. Like, he's just such a supportive human being that it made talking to him so much fun. Especially like we refer in this episode, which doesn't make sense in the chronological order or the order that we've released them. That makes sense. Yeah. But you said like, thanks for being thanks for being our first interview besides our moms. Because he literally was one of our very first interviews that we did. We weren't even sure if it was going to actually be released. And he's just, so like having his support on that side was just so phenomenal. Like, so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there was another part in there that I wanted to clarify during this. I'll just clarify it now, is that we talk about Stephen Ryan in the interview, because Stephen Ryan is Jordan's close friend, and Stephen Ryan was the second episode of Talking 20, talking about music, post-pandemic gigs, going viral. That was his episode. So I do refer in that one. I say, oh, and we have a cool collab coming up with Stephen Ryan. So that was because we recorded Jordan's before we recorded Steve's. So... Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to clarify that. But fun Jordan is, there's one part in the episode that is literally like, you make a statement, I do a yes and, Jordan does a yes and then we kept doing yes ands. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I have to cut out some of this. Like,
well, and that's what I mean.
It's like, hilarious if you know us, but at a certain point, you're like, all right, guys, get to the point.
Yeah, which is like a bit of the like, okay, don't be too self-indulgent in what we think is funny versus like what the audience will actually give a shit about.
Yeah.
Which is the creative side of this that I love. And like your editing process in the background is literally like, to me, I see it as like painting on a blank canvas where you're like, okay, like we have a direction, but by the end of it, it's going to look differently than we thought when we started it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Which is like I'm not a painter, but painters say that. So I'm going with the analogy. But knowing like you're in there and you're editing it and you're like, oh, this is like funny. We're laughing our heads off. But take it out of context as one of the people in the room, because we just all love each other. So we're like having the time of our life. But it's like almost like they're inside jokes at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like when you get too far out. Yeah, but there's some funny stuff in there. Like just so silly. And I said that to you yesterday. I'm just loving the diversity, like having such an intense and wonderful conversation with my mom that I think had a lot of deep context to it versus Jordan's. We got deep on certain things, and like his insight, like his little insight blurb at the beginning, I'm so excited for.
Yeah, my mom texted me this morning because I sent it to her to listen to, and she said, he put into words things that it took me 60 years to figure out. Like, he's very insightful. So don't think that this whole episode coming out is just us goofing around and improv and like, oh my God, it's the Bridget, Mary, and Jordan show. Like, Jordan has some he's had a lot of years to do some introspection, and the things that I think he went to school for philosophy, so he's like a little philosopher. Like,
and he studies Jordan Peterson, and he loves,
What's Jordan Peterson?
Wait, no, he doesn't. Now I'm trying to remember.
Just because his name is Jordan.
No, Jordan Peterson's... No. naming, and he loves Michael Jordan. Like, just loves him.
his favorite. I can't think of any other Jordans. I was gonna do a yes and, but I was like, I don't know any other Jordans.
I'm out. No, Jordan Peterson's a philosophy guy. He's very big. Like a lot of people listen to him. And but now as I said it, I was like, fuck no, because when we talked to Stephen Ryan, I was like, Jordan loves Jordan Peterson. And he looked at me, he's like, no, he doesn't. And I was like, I thought he did. Okay. So maybe we need to clarify with Jordan, because maybe he doesn't, but he has Jordan Peterson vibes. Jordan is he goes very deep. He's very in my brain, the wheels aren't moving. He thinks very deeply, and he goes inside a lot to consider all the factors. Wow, words. You guys will know what I mean when you listen. How about that?
He's very introspective. He goes, he digs deep, he figures out what his certain feelings mean, and then he puts it into words, which is what a lot of people, I think, can't do, is like, they just feel things, and they're like, okay, I'm feeling sad because I'm feeling sad. But he has this ability to, like, dive deep down and be like, okay, why am I feeling sad, and how does that relate to the rest of the world?
Yeah. Yeah, and then, like, just even the way he talked about millennials and his theory on why he lives the way he does, it just made so much sense. And in a way that it was like, wow, we've all been struggling, and, like, the message you and I have even been trying to send is, like, it's not the same. 20s in the 20s is not the same as our parents or the people that will come after us, and blah, 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 blah. And then he was like, hey, instead of, like, trying to fit the square peg in the round hole and find what this, like, all means, why don't we just, like, give into it and understand that it's just going to be different? And his way of operate, like, can I give a little sneak peek on what we talk about, or you want me to avoid that?
Yeah, just don't give away, like, his big, like, the beginning quote. I think we should leave for the episode.
No, yeah,
it's incredible. Sure. But yeah, I think we should talk about what we talk about for sure.
Yeah, the biggest thing, like, for people to get excited is that him and his best friend bought a house together. And the whole process of going through that and why they did it and how confident they are in that process, it is super millennial of them. But when you talk to him, it's like, damn, more people need to be doing life the way you're doing it. Not to, inflate his ego too much, but
he also talks about the specifics of it as well. So anybody who's thinking about buying a house, like, I know as of right now, I'm kind of in a position where I can't get a house by myself yet, but I'm looking into, like, I'm planning forward. I'm looking into it. I'm like, okay, when would I be able to? So Jordan coming in and being like, this is this idea that I had. I was going to buy a house with my friend. Here's how I did it. To a lot of people, it's like, that sounds like that sounds risky. I don't want to do it. But the way he describes it just makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah, why wouldn't you live with your best friend? You're going to trust them just as much as you would trust your significant other. So why is it any different?
Yeah, and having, like, you live with a roommate right now, right? So it's like, if you're not in a situation, like, unless you're like, I'm a bachelor, I like being a bachelor, I don't like living with other people, and that's, like, a very personal thing to you. Or bachelorette. I just put us all in one bubble. But you know what I mean? Like, you have that ability to think outside the box. You have more options. And like, it just, again, like, his perspective on it and being a millennial is just, it was refreshing, and it's positive and it's upbeat, and it's like, oh, hey, like, there is a way to do this and still be a responsible adult, and, not seem, we talk about, like, the pressures that we get when we make life changes in our 20s, and people kind of, judge us or challenge us on it. And then we laugh because we're like, well, we're supposed to make these decisions in high school, but we can't make them in our 20s and adjust when we're actually, like, figuring our shit out and maturing. So yeah, hearing his story about that and how he came to where he is now, I just think it's going to be crazy relatable. And again, it's fun and lighthearted and also stupid at points. So it's, like, very dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. I also like how the contrast between Brenda's episode and this episode, like, Brenda's talking about, bridging that gap between millennials and older generations. And then Jordan's giving it from kind of like a millennials perspective, which is, like, kind of talks about a lot of the things that Brenda has observed, but Jordan gives our perspective of it. So it was a good, like, I really like that we chose to release them in this order.
Me too.
I also like that for Jordan's episode, I found that we covered a lot of shit. Like, we covered a lot of the shit that happens in your 20s, whereas with some of the past episodes, like with Stephen Ryan's episode, it was more specific to the shit that
Topical.
happens in, the shit that happens when you're a musician. So I think Jordan's is going to be very relatable for like a broader audience because it's just so relatable. He just talks about the shit that happens in your 20s, like buying a house. We talk about breakups. We talk about job searching. Jordan actually was, if you've listened to my episode, I talk about how I was in a valley before I got my current job where I'm at, where I work with Jordan. And Jordan was actually the one who hired me on that job. And he talks about kind of the process of that and the process of, you know, looking for somebody that you want to work with as a like not only somebody that's qualified, but then you also have to look at their personality and are they going to fit in here and are they going to make my life more fun, or, you know, like he just talks about all of the kind of processes that he went through for that.
Yeah, and his humility in it was really funny because I find I've had friends.
Oh yeah,
I've had my phases. Yeah, I've had friends in my own phases where like maybe you start to progress in your career, or I don't know, like you get your first apartment or you're finishing school and you get kind of an ego, which I think is like totally a shield because we still have no fucking clue what we're doing. But like
absolutely a shield.
There's this ego like, oh, like I'm making more money than like most of my friends are, or oh, I'm doing this thing and like no one else is, like, look at me. Oh, I got the raise, I got the promotion, and you're in your whatever. And Jordan's had a lot of those successes, and I think he's like proven himself to have done it really well in your 20s, working really hard with the advantages he's had and whatnot. But he's super humble about it, and he talks about his privilege, and he's like, I just love that even in that scenario where he talks about his own struggle and hardship, he goes, I'm also, and he says it like, I'm super white privileged. Like I got stuff handed to me, and I know that, and I came from a good family, and I know that, and I love that because I think it still needs to be considered in the equation because not everyone's gonna be in that scenario, right?
Yes.
I had some girlfriends here over the weekend, and one of them said, like, I'm nowhere near having a house. Like, this is insane. How do you have this? And just without a beat, and I've said this before, but I was just like, mom and dad are in on this. Like, they've two-thirds of it, right? So, and
Mary does math.
Mary tries math. Doesn't do math. Mary tries math.
I'm an art student. So.
I'm great at shapes, just not great in numbers.
I can really color in the lines.
Yeah,
really.
Actually, that's not true either because I get too anxious and nervous or excited.
Really?
Drawing,
okay. I was like, you get nervous coloring pictures. I can't do it anymore. It's too hard. It's too hard. Yes. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah. No. People talk about like how like drawing or knitting, things like that, calm them. It stresses me the fuck out. Like, I think my ADHD is like, I can't put all my energy into this pen. This is fucking ridiculous. And so I just stop.
I find that I get hyper focused with those things.
Yeah, that's you. That's totally you.
Yeah. So I feel like it's cool how like our ADHD brains are
just on a different spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're individuals, Bridget.
Wow. You wouldn't know that, though.
No, I know. There's a lot of similarities. That's great. Anyway, I don't know what we were talking about, but coloring is stupid.
Yeah. I don't want to color anymore. Yeah, we were talking about Jordan's humility.
Yeah, super humble guy.
He's super humble. Wrap that one up.
Moving on. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
so anyway, I mean, I think that's kind of, is there anything else that we talk about in the episode that we should tease a little bit? Jordan talks about he started his own company over the past year during the pandemic, so he talks a little bit about that, what the process of starting that was, and also what his company does, which is really cool, and I'm sure we will have collaborations with them in the future.
Yeah. Oh.
And yeah, other than that, it's like a super fun episode. There's a lot of insight. I would suggest, because it will be coming out next Friday, so my suggestion, because as I was editing it, I had a glass of wine and I was editing it and I was just cracking up. So I suggest next Friday night, you guys plan a date night with Bridget, Mary, and Jordan, throw on the episode, grab a glass of wine, and just hang out with us in a room because it's
if it's like
great.
3 o'clock on Friday and you're like, I just can't wait, I need to hear about this Jordan fella. There's a fly.
Hell, if it's 9 o'clock, pour yourself a glass of wine at 9 a.m.
Mimosa. We don't judge.
Let's do it.
I won't do
we
it,
don't judge.
but I won't judge
I'll
you.
join you. Oh. That's where we're different.
There we go. I'm actually
awesome.
really hell to be healthy these days. I said really hard.
I'm not doing. I feel like I'm being hard on myself, but anyway, that's a conversation for a different time about my
let's talk about that.
Practices. No, I think we should close it up. Keep it a short one.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else you want to talk about before we.
No, super excited and just reminding people, like we say this all the time, but I think it ends up going through people's like filter. They don't listen, but about following us and downloading the episodes. So if you follow us, like, subscribe, those things you hear Bridget say at the end of every single interview, that's going to give you a notification when an episode is airing, and B, helps us because it tells the apps that we're relevant and that all this hard work is actually working. We're getting so many compliments on how professional it sounds, although we might start posting these, they might think otherwise.
They'll be like, yeah, they're really good at editing themselves to sound professional.
Yeah, the raw ones are a little rough, but we'll get there. And it helps us, and it helps with all those key social media words, the algorithm, the trending, all that jazz. But it's really important for us. It's really helpful. So again, if you're listening to this, just go to the top of whatever app you use, and where our photos are, you'll see a follow or subscribe or a like, whatever it is. And just do it, okay?
Just do it. It's not going to change your life at all, but it will change ours.
0. Yeah, it'll 100% change ours. And if you don't want like actual notifications popping up on your phone, you can turn those off on your phone. We don't need to annoy you every week. However, we want to. It's
only once a week, and we're just going to pop up and be like, just a reminder that we're still here. We're still relevant.
And every once in a while, we're going to have, like, we have some cool shit planned, which we don't need to talk about today. But, like, guys, this, like, obviously you can tell we're thinking this through. And we have plans for, like, the next year and a half. So we really need support so we can actually do these things. Because we're really excited. Yeah,
we don't want to get to a point where a lot of podcasters, get to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, this is fun, but it's not doing anything. And originally, the whole idea behind starting this, I was like, whatever, if the guest listens and my parents listen and their friends listen, like, that's great. Like, we're doing it as a passion project, right?
Yeah.
But if we want to continue it, because it does take up the majority of our time. So if we want to keep doing it, we need to make this something that will be sustainable in the future, which is why follows and subscribes are the best way to show your support, because that way when we do go and try to monetize this thing, try to get sponsorship, we can say, look at how many people are listening to this, and this is what we can get, your message. These are the people we can get your message out to.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally. I think we're just like in a organically explaining to people why it matters so much. And again, I just know that it comes up at the end of every episode. So I was like, how do we make this more, understandable for people?
For sure. Yeah. Well, good. So stay tuned for Jordan Percival's episode coming next Friday. It's going to be a really fun one. Grab a glass of wine and join us for a chat.
Yay. Cheers, friends.